Ethan Gray had everything money could buy but nothing that made him feel alive. His empire stretched across cities, his name filled newspapers, yet his home was built on silence. Each morning, he sat at the same marble table, opposite his wife Clara, whose smile had long become polite habit. Between them sat their daughter Lila, a fragile 10-year-old whom Ethan believed to be blind since birth. Her hands traced the edges of her plate, her eyes, pale and still, never met his. He pitied her and loved her in a distant way, the way men who fear emotion call it care. Clara's voice would fill the quiet, soft and practiced, as she guided Lila's spoon or commented on the weather. Ethan answered with distracted hums, already thinking of meetings and markets. To outsiders, they were perfect: the billionaire philanthropist, his graceful wife, and their brave, blind daughter. Inside those polished walls, warmth had long vanished. Clara devoted herself to Lila's care, and Ethan told himself that was enough reason for her distance. When she began taking Lila to special lessons, he felt only gratitude. He assumed she needed company, that Lila needed stimulation. He never asked questions. His love was made of assumptions. At night, he worked in his study overlooking the city, the glow of his screens reflecting on untouched whiskey. Sometimes he heard faint music from Lila's room, soft notes, hesitant, like raindrops. He thought Clara played them to soothe their daughter to sleep. Yet a strange ache grew in him. When Lila touched his face and whispered, "You're sad today," he froze. How could she sense what she couldn't see? Her words lingered, echoing in the hollowness of the house. Ethan dismissed the thought. He was too practical for mystery, too proud to question. But deep down, something inside him already knew that what he saw wasn't the truth, that blindness in this house belonged not to the child, but to him. Clara had once believed love could survive silence. Years beside Ethan taught her it could not. He spoke in numbers, not emotions. His affection was measured in gifts, not glances. When he came home late, his excuses sounded like business reports. The man she married had become a stranger dressed in wealth. She didn't hate him, she mourned the man he used to be. Lila's music lessons began as therapy. The new tutor, Daniel, was kind and patient, his voice warm where Ethan's was cold. He taught Lila to feel rhythm through touch, to listen with her skin. Clara stayed to watch, her heart softening to the gentleness between them. In Daniel's company, she remembered how laughter felt, how being seen without judgment could heal wounds no one noticed. His kindness filled the spaces Ethan's neglect had hollowed out. What began as gratitude turned into something she couldn't name. Their hands brushed when passing a book, their eyes lingered too long. Clara hated herself for it, yet she returned every time. Daniel never asked for more than her presence, and that made it harder to resist. Lila's joy during lessons gave Clara the excuse she needed. She told herself it was harmless, she was still a wife, still loyal in everything that mattered. But deep down, she knew the line was already crossed. Ethan began sensing something unspoken. Clara's laughter, once rare, returned only when he wasn't around. Her perfume lingered differently, warmer, lighter. Lila hummed unfamiliar tunes, melodies filled with emotion Ethan couldn't trace. One night, he heard that laughter drift through the hall, soft, intimate, belonging to someone else. A sound that didn't fit in his world of order and control. In that moment, a quiet certainty struck him. His wife's heart was no longer his, and the life he built was beginning to crack from within. Ethan confronted Clara the next morning, his voice steady but stripped of warmth. He didn't shout, he didn't need to. His silence accused louder than any word could. Clara met his stare, her eyes full of something between shame and exhaustion. She confessed without denial, saying she hadn't meant to betray him, only to feel human again. The words stung less than the calm with which she spoke them. For years she'd been invisible, she said, and Daniel had simply noticed her. Ethan wanted anger, but all he felt was disbelief that love could die so quietly. As Clara spoke, a faint sound came from Lila's room, a chair scraping, light footsteps. Ethan turned, the habit of control returning. When he opened the door, the world he knew collapsed. Lila stood facing the window, eyes wide open, watching sunlight slip through the curtains. Her gaze followed him. She wasn't blind. His breath caught, the floor beneath his certainty giving way. Clara rushed in, tears spilling before she could explain. Lila had regained her sight months ago. Doctors had called it a miracle, but Clara hadn't told him. She feared he would turn it into a press headline, another chapter in the billionaire's story of triumph. Clara said she wanted Lila to live a normal life, one free from cameras and charity speeches. The music lessons weren't just therapy, they were the only place Lila felt safe enough to rediscover the world she could finally see. Ethan sank into disbelief. The betrayal wasn't just of marriage but of truth. His wife's affair had taken his pride. This lie took his purpose. He looked at Lila, truly looked, and realized she had seen him all along. For the first time, Ethan understood the cruel irony. He had been blind not by nature, but by choice. Months passed, and Ethan's world shrank to silence. The empire he once ruled ran without him. Boardrooms continued to echo his name, but he no longer answered. Clara left quietly, taking Lila with her. There were no arguments, no drawn-out goodbyes, just a note, brief and kind, thanking him for the years they shared. He didn't chase them. He knew some losses were meant to be carried, not reclaimed. The house, once filled with expensive stillness, now felt like punishment. Ethan stopped searching for distraction and wealth. He spent his mornings walking aimlessly, his nights replaying words he never said. He finally understood that love cannot survive absence disguised as success. One day, through an old friend, he learned that Lila had started a small music foundation for blind children. She was only 12, but already carried more grace than he ever had. Quietly, he became its anonymous benefactor, sending funds under another name, never seeking credit. It was the only way he knew to stay near her without intruding. At her first public recital, he stood at the back, unseen among strangers. The hall filled with the same melody she once hummed as a child, the one he used to ignore. The music rose and broke something inside him. Lila's fingers moved with confidence, her face peaceful, her eyes open to everything he had refused to see. When she paused mid-performance, her gaze lifted briefly toward the crowd's edge, as if sensing him there. She smiled softly, knowingly, and began to play again. Ethan felt tears blur the world before him. For the first time, blindness felt like mercy. Some truths are too sharp to face in full light. He left before the applause, the sound following him into the night, carrying both his regret and his quiet redemption.